Hello and welcome to this League of Legends jungle guide. And in this one we will be taking a look at a level 2 ganking strategy that can translate to huge early game control. And of course in this meta we know that the ganking is reigning supreme. We did a video about that 2 weeks ago. But as the jungle routes become more consistent and we find out which are the best ones to use, the one thing that remains consistent is that jungle experience sucks, and so we must be ganking, invading, and ganking some more. For the strategy to best work out, you do need a strong level 2 ganking jungler, and with Sylas's mini rework just going live and seemingly in a weaker spot, this hasn't stopped the high elo Challenger Korean junglers from using the strategy to the fullest effect. On that note, he can be quite difficult to pull off properly, and so when you are in the lower and mid MMRs, you might want to pick an easier champion. You will see some of those choices on your screen now. Lee Sin is obviously a high elo classic, in addition to taking something like Camille. For the more entry level junglers, you can of course use Jarvan 4 or Xin. Those are really good reliable level 2 gankers. And as we get into it, please don't forget, if you enjoyed the video and learned something, please consider liking it, and of course subscribing if you're looking forward to all the upcoming Season 10 jungle videos. Now I do have a core game example where I want to show you the translation effects of this level 2 ganking route. However, let's look at a few core examples about what can possibly happen and what you need to know in order to actually do it. As you can see here, you could start on the red buff as Sylas. A lot of the junglers are actually taking E first, and then you want to head over the dragon pit wall, do a nice circular route, and then gank on the bottom lane. In the best case scenario, you're burning sums and you're getting kills. You really want to all in this to get that first blood. The experience and the lane pressure you get from this is the most important aspect. From there you have two options. You can go to your Krugs, like in this situation, perhaps do your Raptors. However, you run the risk of losing your blue side, as you see in this example. All his camps are gone and now he's kind of stuck in a situation. Obviously from there you have to make certain plays, but what you can keep in mind is once you've had the gank in the bottom lane, even if it doesn't work out, at the very least hopefully you get some summoner spells and lane priority for your bottom lane, and you've had a good top lane or mid lane ward, you can go and invade and steal their blue buff. If your top laner happens to walk by and show you, then you know for sure. This is why it is important to ward at the beginning, go back and switch for a red trinket, so at least now you can actually scan as you approach your gank. The last thing you want to do is go for that level 2 gank, they see you're coming and they escape, and now everyone knows where you are, and you've lost the most valuable resource of an early game jungler, and that's time. Now this does run the risk of you being counter jungled yourself. That's why you are looking for a high success rate conversion, but at the same time you are able to do this type of level 2 gank when you're on the red side of the map. Take the red buff, immediately move on down to the bottom lane, let them know you're coming so they can have the right abilities, the right CC spells ready to go, grab the kill, and now you can take your blue and Grom, get level 3, and you have priority over the Scuttle Crab. Now with Sylas, there's one little intricacy that you might need. He does get very low in his rework on this first clear. You're not looking to do a first full clear unless you have, maybe a pre-made or some kind of strategy in the early game. However, if you get no leash or just a terrible one, which I guess most of us are used to, remember you have the talisman, so as you walk by the Raptors on the red side, simply lay down a Q as you walk by the wall and watch your HP regenerate to almost full, and you'll be ready to go for the bottom lane gank. Understanding little things like that, and of course chaining CC with your support is most important, and of course you need to have the right lane matchups in order to exploit it, because sometimes if you have no CC in your bottom lane, perhaps you just want to try and do this level 2 gank on the mid lane. Alright, now that the introductory pieces are out of the way, let's see how we can use this strategy to extend ourselves a nice early game lead and take control of the jungle, objectives, ganking, and the game. There will also be a little less fiesta going on because it is a higher MMR game, but I will point out where there are mistakes and things you should look out for if you are not exactly in this bracket. And so this giant sack of chains starts in the red buff and then ease over the dragon pit wall, nice circular approach into the bottom lane, and you'll notice he's going for the gank on the bottom lane before the cooldown on his E has fully reset. That's because he communicated to his bottom lane that this was going to happen, and they're already pre-chunked and pre-engaged. He uses E1, flashes, gets the twirly whirly passive, second part of the E, another twirly whirly, and she dies. Naturally, the examples at the beginning of the video showed you more basic examples. This was a little bit tighter, but it's important to note where the extremes can be pushed in order to execute this game, because once you show and commit, you must see it through fully, much like a revolution. That's why it's always important to print out enough pamphlets. From there, instead of going to the Krugs like in the earlier example, he goes to the Raptors to take control of that. And because in the first example you saw when he went to Krugs into Raptors, he lost his entire blue side, so taking the Raptors there and then moving up into the top side reduces the possibility that a jungler can fully clear your top side. In this case, in Echo, most of these kind of junglers that want to do interior clears won't be ready to react to these level 2 ganks. They may be focused on the AoE camps and getting the interior clear in order to get level 4, and they won't really be in a position to counter jungle you or to counter gank. As such, once this Sylas is taking control of his blue side, he's taking the Scuttle Crab, You want to look for another gank before you go back to base. This can be on the mid lane if they're pushed up. It can also be on the top lane. In this case, he scans on his way up. An excellent ward by the Malphite. Remember, top laners, you can defend yourselves against these ganks. And the minions just get in the way of his E there, so the Malphite is safe for now. So all in all, a really good start. You'll notice the Echo in this case did get the bottom crab, he did have a drive-by in the mid lane, and now he's going to counter jungle the Krugs, because as a jungler, when you go to the top lane early game, you will be counter jungled. It's important that you know how to react to this though. The level 2 gank will dictate what the enemy jungler can do next, and how you read where he's going to be following that will dictate if you can actually get fed and carry the game. And sometimes this won't take the best form until a few minutes, 10-15 minutes, so your KDA might not look good, but you're setting yourself up for an enormous finish. And I really want to make a joke, maybe an Evelyn joke, but I'm mature, so I'm gonna move on. So given that his Krugs was stolen, he knows it, he doesn't mind sharing things equally among the people. He takes his Raptors and then immediately heads to the top side of the map. You could look for a gank in the bottom lane again, you could look for a mid lane gank. However, remember, your game plan as a jungler is not just to gank and impact lanes, it's to remove the enemy jungler from being able to do that to your team. And the jungler who can accomplish this will be the one who wins most of their games. So here he goes up to the Raptors, the Echo went back to base, rotates down for his second tier Raptor spawn, but Sylas was a smart boy and went counter jungling with his smite up. Uses the fact that he knows Echo is gonna go to the bot side to go and punish that Malphite as a second roundabout gank on the top side. Remember, when you have a gank that doesn't net kills, but a summoner spell is burned either during your gank or because of it afterwards, you want to go repeat and abuse. The gank seems to go pretty well until Malphite escapes with a sliver of health, and it requires a Spear of Destiny, which travels through space and time in order to make sure it hits that tiny pebble. From there, you can transition to do more counter jungling. It's not always counter jungling into ganks, sometimes it's ganks into counter jungling. So in a very nice thematic transition from rock to rock, Echo isn't quite happy after holding the mid lane that he's being put on a few strings here, because he may be a kid, but he's definitely not Pinocchio. And I don't even know what that means. All I know is his ambition outweighs his talent. Pantheon, Sylas, Dead Echo. A very nice combination of CC. And on that note, the Malphite has rotated up, the Asura has rotated up, the Talon's rotated up, the Malphite gets level 6 on a dying minion, and most unfortunately for the blue team, what was a seemingly very good start turns a little bit around here as everyone dies except the one guy who you actually wanted to. But nonetheless, a good start and all the byproduct of a level 2 gank, because you're forcing the Echo to play catch up. As soon as you gank first, the Echo now has to reevaluate his position in the game. Well, I can't gank bottom lane because the enemy jungler just did it. Are there camps that I can counter jungle? Is there a lane I can gank also? Okay, well not really, but he's top, so I'll go take his Krugs. But because he took my Krugs, that means he's gonna try to take my Krugs, so once I go back to base, I'm gonna meet him there. You see how the Sylas is kind of directing the Echo just through this extension? That's what you're looking for. However, what you're not looking for is to give up control in the lane that got the level 2 gank. Especially if it's perhaps your duo. It's pretty good to do this level 2 gank meta when you have someone on your team who you can communicate with. But because of the sad and harsh times that occurred on the top lane, the Echo is first to rotate down for the bottom lane gank. They grab a kill, that's very nice. Now the Sylas of course has controlled the tempo of the game, gets a little bit too greedy, and activates the jungle buff delivery system. So even though you've had a great start, remember that the jungle meta at the moment is very unforgiving on these kinds of errors. I would know because as you get more into your 30s, you tend to just get more washed up and you die a lot. But from the Echo's perspective, this is definitely a very good turn of events. I also did make a video on how to come back from a bad start in Season 10 because it's very important you adhere to a certain protocol in order to do so. And once your bot lane's in a 2v1 advantage and the enemy jungler is dead, you 100% want to look for that dive on the bottom side. He grabs himself an assist and now he has control of the bottom side of the jungle. Sylas knows this, so Sylas goes to the top side when he respawns. However, you don't want to get too greedy in the Echo situation because remember, there's a Pantheon on the blue side team. There is a Sylas who is probably going to be in the near proximity if you've been tracking it properly. You can see that everyone has in fact rotated. Sylas picks himself up a kill, a nice ultimate by the Pantheon, a strong impact roam by the Leona to help out as well. And then this of course starts the next phase, objective control. If you cannot translate a level 2 gank win into more pressure than the enemy jungler, into those objectives that can help you win the game, then you've made a mistake somewhere or perhaps greeded. So upon completion of the Rift Herald taming process, he goes and takes his blue buff, and the only reason he does this is because he wants to time a top lane gank with the approach of his top laner. We talk a lot about this in the ganking videos, perhaps this time I did another one and an updated one, you know, using the alcoves and things like this. But you want to make sure that gank is timed perfectly with your laner and the minion wave. As such, he gets to steal one of the biggest impacting ults in the game, and Malphite has to use his in order to escape. Following this, he doesn't fall back to his Grump and Wolves, he doesn't care, he goes back to base, get the item spike, and then move on down to the bottom side. Unfortunately, as is always the way, your mid laner will die, your mid laner will int, or something bad will happen on the map when things are going well. Don't try and do your Raptors first, use that nice ultimate you have, go to the mid lane, kill the mid laner, push it out, Now you can take the dragon. Why? Because the Echo again is playing catch up. He has to gank the lanes you've already ganked. Because he hasn't ganked before you ganked, because you had the first gank, because you level 2 ganked. Make sense? So once you've done that mid lane cleanup, you're probably looking to take the dragon. However, do not throw a blind eye to your lanes. If you see a skirmish breaking out, go there first. Kill the Cassiopeia, very nice. Obliterate the Morgana. Summon the giant purple beetle and let Syndra get solo plate gold while you secure the dragon. That entire play was made while Echo got 2 plates on the top side. I don't think I need to discuss too much about who won that trade. But now we must talk about this very important aspect of Season 10 jungling, closing out these huge leads, because we are basically early game minions. They do a hell of a lot of damage early in laning phase, but you know, once level 18 they're just getting one shot by half an auto attack. At least that's kind of how it feels when the top lane is level 18 and you're level 13. As such, even though now you want to group and take that mid lane tower because of the proximity and how it opens up the map, the fact that the bottom lane tower is gone is obviously very nice, but the common mistakes that I see are people either fall back into farming their jungle too much and not focusing on taking more towers, or they do a little bit about what the Sylas' team does here, just going down mid and A-ramming and trying to brute force that tower. And he gets kills but he dies, and then they try again and they get more kills but he dies, and then the third time is a charm and they actually get a few more kills and it looks definitely a bit more pretty in terms of Sylas mechanics. They still don't get the tower, at the very least they get a dragon, so objective focus is still on the mind, and they could afford to do this because of the lead they had, but you must be very careful about losing too many of those, giving shutdowns, giving up map pressure, and losing that lead that you worked so hard to gain in the first 15 minutes. Pay attention to team comps, pay attention to when you do your camps. Remember, we've talked about this before. When your team is back, resetting, and you don't need to, go take your camps. But if there's a siege going on or a fight needed or a dragon spawning, you don't want to be doing Gromp, you don't want to be doing Raptors. So on that note, it's good that you got the dragon, but you had to lose 3 fights in order to do it, and you didn't gain any other tower pressure. So what they do after getting the dragon and resetting is going to the top lane and looking to push that wave out. Again, sometimes you really do have to fight for those towers, especially when they have wave clear, you don't have an AD carry. They have a Malphite Yasuo combo, which you may have seen once or twice over the past 6 years. But once you've taken that tower now, you can fall down, take the second Herald. People are not taking Herald early enough. It's getting buffed in the next patch, right? So if you're watching this video now and you watch it next week again, know that the Herald will do more damage. Getting an early Herald and then getting a second Herald at this stage can really blow open games. And in this case, that's actually what happened. Sylas gets a few more kills, which I will show you and highlight to you here. The Dragon Soul is now on the map after taking 3 of them. And there you have it, a good few examples at the beginning of the video showing you the power of level 2 ganks. Make sure you pick a jungler. You know, a Graves could do this technically. It's not always the best unless you have lots of CC. But if you have something that can hop over the Dragon Pit wall into a lane gank on the bottom lane, top lane, or mid lane, that's excellent. With a Xin, you don't have the dash, but you have a really good knock-up. You know, you can just go poke him with your spear. So pay attention to the kit you have. In this case, Sylas, obviously, it requires a bit more nuance than a Jarvan. But hopefully you can see the transitive effects of this level 2 pressure. The enemy jungler is always playing catch-up. Make sure you have your early vision. Make sure you have your red scanner. If you do get a kill and the enemy jungler is perhaps taking your top side, you can go counter jungle. If he does take it and you can't go counter jungle, that's fine. Look to secure Crab, perhaps get another gank off. But whatever happens, keep your eyes open for the enemy jungler and make sure he's always following everything you're doing, because the jungler that dictates the pace of the game in Season 10 is the one that will actually end up affecting lanes the most. And even though we are a bit more at the whims of our laners than we've ever been in terms of scaling and winning, and I really do hope for some kind of experience buff, at least this is the best way to impact the game in the meantime. So you will see the enemy team FF in a short bit. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed and learned something. Please do like, share, and comment if you did. I always like to hit 1,000 likes per video. It lets me know what you want to see more of, and it makes me feel pretty. Please do subscribe for more Season 10 jungle videos coming very soon. And as always, I will see you all in the next tutorial.